Hello, Jim Howard here in Fort Worth, Texas. Today's date, it is July 28th of 2021, and it's almost 9:30 p.m. here in Fort Worth, Texas. Um, I've been looking around on, checking out YouTube car chases and stuff. That pisses me off so much, watching cat videos. I don't really click for cat videos and stuff, but you know, they pop up and things. So I've been wasting a bunch of time. What I have been doing, um, I don't know. Well, I'm always clicking on items, checking, looking for news. Something looks interesting. Uh, the commercial people, they sure know how to, and now it's so easy for them. They know what we read, what we look at, I mean, just everything. So it shouldn't be hard to be a salesman or to be uh, three of us live here. Myself, I guess I should put myself first, right? Myself, my grown son, and my ex-wife. We've been divorced for, I think, 40 years or more. I think I've got three things coming tomorrow from Amazon, and my ex-wife has uh, something coming tomorrow. In separate. I mean, we each, ordered. In fact, the three things that I ordered, I didn't order them all together. I was, online and thought I'm going to check this. One of the things I ordered tomorrow is some cologne. Is that the correct camera? Yeah. Some cologne. Uh, Back, let's see. Well, it's more than 20 years ago. No, we're in 2021. Wait a minute. No, 2021. Well, back in the 1990s, one of the places I was working at, security at a hospital, and well, I'd worked at three or four different hospitals that they owned, and you know, but anyway, I had worked at one hospital for 9 years, the small one that they owned. Then I ended up going to back to the main hospital. I'd worked there 5 years before I went to, and then I'd worked for 1 year over at. Anyway, I'm getting confused here. Anyway, I went down to the main hospital to be a bike patrol officer. I had gotten written up before, God, well, it had been 9 years when I was out at that. I went out there, and there was only two of us that worked out there. Uh, I worked two 12s and two 8-hour shifts, and the other guy worked uh, two 8-hour shifts, I think. I can't remember. But I took my bicycle to work, and would go out. I would sometimes just go out and walk around the parking lot. Sometimes I go out and just, especially on like a Saturday or Sunday when I came in early. By the way, as you know, I have no script. When I started, well, I had an idea here. If you look here, you can see a little tip off. I don't have any notes, and that's something I shouldn't be proud of, and I'm not proud of it. I just am extemporaneous. I just start talking, and then I wander off like I am now. But the only notes I might have, and they're not really notes, are you may see a tab up here that says something, and that's what I'll do before I start the video is I'll know that I'm going to be talking about especially a product. Not always, but so I'll tab it so that then I can be talking and then click and go to that and show it. But back to where was I? Oh, okay. And I don't even know why in the world I went there. Anyway, I went down to the main. Well, when I started working at this small hospital, I took my bicycle and I'd go out on a Saturday and Sunday, especially when it was warm weather. This little hospital, their parking lots and the design for drainage or whatever there was. So I'd come in at 6 p.m. One time I came in at 6 p.m., made my rounds, went over by the, I've already jumped to a new subject, by the way. Went over by the ER door and started to step outside. I opened up the door and I heard this sound and I thought, it was loud. Whooshing, I can't do it, a sound. I thought, what in the world is that? And then I looked up and there was a hot air balloon heading straight for me. And there was, I think, about 3 people in it. And I could have, almost, how do you do, But the gondolier, the bag, the basket or whatever, was heading, this guy was, trying to go up with it. And he just barely made it above. There was, luckily, that part of the hospital was right at that was the ER door. And, like a few feet away where it was 2 stories there, And anyway, they went over and I went out to see if they were okay and they landed. They went over the Outer Belt Road and went down into a little ditch and they were okay. But I almost got hit by that'd have been something. How did Grandpa die? Killed by a hot air balloon. Oh my God, he fell out of a hot air balloon hit him in the head, But, so, moving back a couple tabs, when I'd come in on Saturday and Sunday, especially, I'd come in at 6 p.m. at that small hospital, and if the weather was good, summertime, there'd be quite often, some kids out on skateboards or something like that, and they were right at the front drive, and there was only one entrance or drive into this place at that time to come in, and there was gullies or not gullies, whatever you'd call them, were drainage things. They've been concreted, and so a few times I'd be making my round and on a Saturday, Sunday, and I'd come in and I'd see those kids out there on their skateboards or whatever, and so I'd go out the front door and start walking towards them to tell them, hey, you can't do this. Please don't do it. Don't do that here. It's dangerous. You might get hurt. And as soon as they'd see me coming, they'd be on the skateboards and they'd be gone. But I never didn't bring the bikes in for that reason. Bikes, not bikes. But I brought it in, and then I was there, and I looked at, so I went around and got the bicycle. Then I, rode right up to him, and then I said, hi, how you guys doing? Man, yeah, it looks like this is a lot of fun, yeah. And then talked to him a little bit. And I said, the hospital doesn't want you, doing this, so please don't do this. And because you could get hurt, the hospital's afraid that you're going to get hurt out here, so. And they were nice, then it might have been some different kids another time, and I'd ride my bike out there and talk to them a little bit, and then they stopped doing it, But, so I had my bike out there, and occasionally, for months, maybe longer, on my activity sheet, because you had to, all the hospitals I worked at, you had to keep an activity sheet, and they wanted you to, whatever you did, put it on the, you were so busy if you followed their, they want to know what you were doing every 15 minutes, and I'll put all this stuff down. And so everything was logged on my activity sheet, bike patrol, that type of stuff. Actually, the hospital's, I think, idea, was, well, to make sure that you were working, but then also so they could know what you were doing, and so they could come back. Because there's a few times that I got uh, confronted by, the why did you do such and such, and actually, then I would, well, didn't you look on my activity? You could see. Uh, Actually, that activity sheet that I did actually helped me because there'd be something like, well, you did such and such, and I think I might have mentioned this, one time. And actually, it was, I said, well, look, yeah, I wasn't, but so anyway, it was like I got reviewed like once a year. Well, we all got reviewed like once a year, but I was always at the top of my pay scale. So sorry, uh, that you can't get any additional money because you're at the top of the pay scale, for security officer. But anyway, I got my merit review, and it was a new director of security, and the other old director of security who was there, he was uh, a guy who went to work back in the days when the police department was corrupt and the fire department was corrupt and Kansas City was corrupt and everything because of uh, a guy who was a city boss. And I think the guy eventually actually held office for a very short period of time. And he was it was just kind of the way things worked in big cities, you know, back in those days. So if you wanted to get a job back in, that was before I was born, uh, if you had to go to him, and I guess somehow he let you know, okay, well, okay, maybe, and you could go there probably and say, hey, I'd like to get a job on the police department, I'd like to get a job on the fire department, or or whatever. Or sometimes I guess he might say, hey, well, my concrete company, needs some workers because, we're building the city hall, we're building the county courthouse, and they're using my concrete, and they're using my, So this guy, he went and wanted to be a police officer, and got hired, and he spent I don't know how long, 30 years or more, as a police officer, and he moved up in ranks and all that kind of stuff. Uh, then when he left the police department, he became a director of security at the city, or was it be county hospital? City hospital, I think. Uh, he was director of security there, and that's when I first heard of him. I just started working hospital security at a Catholic hospital, and I've mentioned this. There was this guy who came in. He brought his wife into the hospital quite often, all the time, and I'd see him and say, "Oh, I guess your wife's in the emergency room," or I'd see him up on the floor or something. "Oh, your wife's here," and we would talk a little bit. And then one day he said to me, I came in, I was making my rounds, and he was at the emergency room standing there, and I said, "Oh, it looks like your wife must be back. Is she doing okay?" And he said, "Well, not too well," and everything. And he says, I'm here a lot," and he says, "I see you guys," and he says, "You guys look like you do a wonderful job here," and everything. He said, "Well, thank you," or something. I can't remember exact conversation. And he said, "Can I ask you a question?" He says, "I'm a police officer, and I work over at the General Hospital." Later, the name was changed to Truman Medical Center after President Harry Truman. And he said, "I work over there, and I work in the police unit they have there." And I said, I didn't know they had one." And he says, "Yeah." He says, "I work there," and he says, back, I forget how long he said, back a couple of weeks ago or last week or something like that, two of the prisoners attacked me. and I was having a hell of a time. And this guy was not a young guy. I was a young guy at that point, but he wasn't. Uh, and he said, I had a heck of a time, getting them restrained and everything. And he said there were a couple of hospital security officers there. And he says, I said, hey, help me, or whatever. And they didn't do anything. And so after I got these guys restrained, I said, what the hell's wrong with you guys? I asked you to help me. And they said, sorry, we can't do that. We have direct orders if we're not to do that. And if we do, we'll be fired. And this guy said, so I went to their director of security because I couldn't believe it. I said, well, I can't believe it either, And he says, I went to him and he said he was a high-ranking Kansas City, Missouri police officer, retired, and he was in charge there. He was the director of security there. And he said, I told him, and he said, yeah, that's correct. I told them they are not to get involved in, with, dealing with any of those prisoners at all. And if they do, they'll be fired. And I said, I can't believe that. And he said, would you guys? And I said, yeah. I said, I can't think of a hospital security officer or any security officer. You wouldn't have to ask. I said, I just can't believe that. I ended up eventually working for this guy that he was, the guy that was director, Bill Gilmer. Anyway, how did I get on that? Oh, because I mentioned, So, anyway, I ended up working at that hospital where I was, St. Joseph Hospital. Then I worked over at Trinity Lutheran Hospital for 5.5 years. And then I didn't want to, the guy begged me. It turned out it was this guy who wouldn't let his people, And I didn't want to work there. I didn't want to work hospital security anymore. And the guy was calling me, and I had a telephone answer machine, and he left a message, this is Bill Gilmer, Director of Security at Research Medical Center, yeah. I'd like to give me a call, please. And of course, I didn't call him. I didn't want to, But then I was also a reserve officer for a small police department, and the guy there was a retired police sergeant for Kansas City, Missouri. And Bill Gilmer, this guy who was, the director of security and who was calling, helped get him his job. And so Bill Gilmer was calling, I think it was Lee Coleman at that time. There was a couple of directors of security, well, one was the chief of police and the other was a director of security at a hospital, both ex-sergeants from Canada. I get their names mixed up now. So he said, Jim, Bill Gilmer has been trying to call you on the time. I said, yeah, I don't want to work for him. Jim, I said, no, I don't want to work for him. And he said, well, Jim, do me a favor. He says, he helped get me this job as chief of police here, and he put in a good word for me and whatever. And he lives in, Raymore. And call him. So I called the guy up, and I went to work, for him. And as soon as I went to work for him, immediately, and I've mentioned that in some detail here, different stories or whatever, as soon as I went to work for him, I realized that, right away he had I don't know how many people he did it with. I understand he did it with some people, I think. New person comes in. He took me up to the coffee shop there or whatever and bought me breakfast. And then he's saying, yeah, I worked for, the city boss. What was that? I should remember. Because Harry Taft, Pendergast, that was it, Pendergast. Because when Harry Truman finally ended up getting elected from Missouri, he got the help of Pendergast. That's what those guys did in those days, I guess. And so when he ended up in the United States Senate, the other senators were, and that's Pendergast's boy. That's. But so anyway, this director of security, Bill Gilmer, bought me breakfast there. Yeah, I went to Pendergast, and when somebody does something, for you, then you owe them, and you have to. And I'm sitting there thinking, what the fuck's going on? I didn't ask this guy for a job. I'm thinking, I didn't ask him for a job. I didn't want to work for him. If anything, I'm doing him a favor going to, oh, that was the thing, yeah. When this guy was telling me, well, I'd like you to come to work for me, He says, well, here's the thing. He says, there's this director of nurses here at the hospital, and her husband wants this job that's, available. And he has pretty good credentials, and really good credentials, and background and everything. And so I got to find somebody with better background, and or else she's going to wonder, or she's going to, why didn't I hire her husband? And so I want you to come to it. So I went to work for him. Years later, by the way, this director of nurses, she had changed jobs, and she was head of a department. I think the head of the volunteers there at the hospital. And then, of course, this Bill Gilmer was no longer director of security. We had a new director of security who came in, and he was, the other security officers, because I would stand up to this guy, or to anybody, the other 24 security officers all thought that I didn't like this new director of security. I liked him. He was wrong about some things because, well, he had a guy there in security who I had some problems, a supervisor who I had some problems with. And that guy spent, because I was out at this other small hospital by then, and that guy spent every day of his life telling this new director of security what an SOB I was and how I was no good. And I knew that was going on, but I expected that, I expected that to go on. And my problem with that supervisor that was doing that, one, it was just petty, because when that other director of security left, retired, this new hospital, I've been working there 5 years. This new hospital finally had opened up. They had a temporary ER site out there, and then it took a year, and then they had the hospital built. And in the beginning, when they were building it, and by the way, I lived, I could throw a rock almost from where I lived to where the new hospital was. They asked, the director of security, the guy who was an SOB, who wants to turn in your name if you want to work when we open up the new Research Belton Hospital, if you want to work there. So 6 people turned in, including me. And the other 5, all of those guys had worked at, the main hospital longer than I had. So and of course those guys they were saying, oh, well, they'll have probably 2 security officers on each shift. And I said, no, there'll be 1 security officer on a shift. And it never occurred to me, actually, that there wouldn't be it wouldn't be a day shift, So, which there wasn't ever. And I had said in the past, at other jobs that I'd had and things like that, and I'd worked in situations where, as a security officer, where there wasn't a day shift security officer, and I refused to work places like that. And I told people, you never want to work someplace where they just have security at night, because it's horrible. You come in and you don't know what's happened. Nobody bothers to tell you. Why should they tell you? You're just the security officer that's there on weekends, when 24 hours a day, when there's, and but so anyway, when the new director of security got hired in, this guy who was the supervisor down there, when the other director of security, the SOB, retired, he says, make sure Jim Howard doesn't go out to research, Belton Hospital. Don't send him out there. I don't want him going out there, And Charlie said, okay. So then I get called in. Well, I've told that story. Well, I'll have to speed it up and leave out all the good details. So in front of the shift that was going off duty, anyway, 6 people put in for it. They're okay. When the one guy was a supervisor, a real nice supervisor in security, and then when he had, before that even happened, he said, if they don't have a supervisory position, I'm not going out there. And I said, I doubt they're going to have one. And then one security officer, a really good security officer, he said, well, yeah, I'll go out there, and I forget how he put it, and I said, no, there's not going to be 2 security officers on a shift, And of course, it didn't occur to me that there wouldn't even be a day shift security officer, And so he wasn't going to work out there, and the rest of them weren't either. I'm not working where there's, where they wouldn't work where there was just. I was the only one left, and 2 who had signed up, and been waiting for years, or a year for the place to, well, more than that, because at the beginning it was just discussions, And why am I doing? I should be full screen, shouldn't I? Man, I think I'm getting Alzheimer's. I don't even know how to go full screen now. That's because I haven't set it up. I just changed this. What did I get on this? Anyway. So this guy who, the director of security's, leaving, but he's going to be checking back in, he wanted to keep as much, So anyway, he told Charlie, make sure Jim Howard doesn't go out there. So, and this other director of security, or the director of security who was retiring, hired in 2, there was only going to be 2 officers, not for there, that was it. 2 officers, and no other officers out there, and not at the same, So anyway, and we had like 25 security officers worked at the main hospital, not all on the same shift, 25 total, But they had 5, 6, day shift like 7, because I worked down there, and there was nights on midnights where there was just 2 of us, and that was in a bad neighborhood, and that was, you couldn't really, we did what we could with 2, But anyway, so with 25 security officers, we have shift, the incoming shift, the outgoing shift, and they're together. They're in the office for a little bit, which is not a good way to do things, but I had no say. What you'd want to do is want to stagger them so not everybody is. And so also what you should do, which they didn't do, is if nurses are working, 3 to 11, you don't want to have security officers, or, of course you have different groups going at different, but, You don't want to have the security officers changing shift at at 11 o'clock at night or day or whatever. You want to have some come in at a little different thing. So because you don't want to be, nurses are going out in the parking lot and you guys are in the security officer, turning over the keys to the other officer or turning over the radios or putting them in the, just all, just. So anyway, so we have a large number of, my shift is going home. No, I was working midnights. So I'm coming in, and the second shift is getting ready to go home. And Charlie says, oh, by the way, Jim, you won't be going to research Belton Hospital. I'm sending out these two new officers that we hired in. And they just got hired in for that position, And I said, I don't want to go into this. I'm going to make it quick. I said, well, you're mistaken. I will be going out there, Charlie. No, you won't. I'm not sending you out there. And I said, oh, you're mistaken. You are going to send me out there. And he says, no, I'm sending out so-and-so and so-and-so. And I said, well, you're mistaken, Charlie. I said, you wouldn't make a pimple on a guard's ass. You're useless. That's the guy with the supervisor. You're useless and you're worthless. But can you accomplish one simple little task for me? I work the midnight shift. I have no opportunity to go to human resources or personnel and get a grievance form or anything else. Can you do one simple thing? When I come in tomorrow night, could you have a grievance form here because I'm doing a grievance? And he says, oh, okay. I knew when I came in the next night he wouldn't have a grievance form. I located one, and I did the grievance, and then filled it out. Then I get called with my supervisor. I get called in, and anyway, Charlie goes through. He goes. You got to give the guy credit for. I don't know what you give him credit for. Stupidity or credit for just having the gall to even, oh, we're not sending you out there because the hospital isn't sending out any new or any old employees from here. They're just going to hire new people. And I said, no, that's because they've so-and-so. I named off people who were already going there, nurses and people like that. I said, that's not correct, John. And he says, oh, okay, well, the reason we're not sending you out there is because we only allocated X amount of money. He didn't say the amount, X amount of money. And with you at the top of the pay scale, we couldn't afford another security officer out there. It would just be you. And then I said, well, then it looks like I'll just be working out there by myself. But my solution to that would be, I knew he was lying, I think you should readjust the budget and come up with the money. So that's, and he says, well, the reason you're not going out there, I mean, he actually did this. The reason you're not going out there is because of the bad merit review you got. And I said, I've never gotten a bad merit review. Not here, not at the previous hospital, not at the hospital before that. I've never gotten a bad, review. And he said, well, you haven't got it yet. It's in my drawer yet. I haven't given it to you. And I said, oh, wonderful, Charlie. I'll be getting I'm doing another grievance. I'm doing the grievance. This one's on you. You can't pass this off and say, the previous director of security told me that, this one's on you. Jim, how long have I known you? And I said, I don't know. I don't care how long you've known me. I'm doing a grievance on you. And he said, Jim, I tell you what, clean out your locker and you start tonight at Research Belton Hospital. But then he spent the next 9 years, and everybody he would meet at the main hospital. And occasionally he would come out to relieve me if I had a vacation day or a holiday or whatever, sometimes, not all the time. He wouldn't relieve me for an entire vacation, but he'd come out to relieve me for a day off or something like that sometimes. And I'd come back to work and the nurse would just say, who was that guy that was out here relieving? Is he a supervisor? I said, yeah, he's sort of a supervisor. Not my supervisor, but sort of a supervisor. And they said, well, he was asking us like questions about you. Have we ever seen you sleeping? have we ever seen you do anything wrong? You know, he was asking. I said, don't pay any attention to him. And then it was even two of the ER doctors, like new ER doctors, not at the same time, but at separate times. You know, like I'd be in the emergency room and the ER doctor would be one who had worked with me for a while. Jim, you seem pretty cool. And I never see you get upset even when something, you know, is going on. You don't get upset. You're so cool. Well, he didn't say you're so cool, but, you know. Can I ask you something? You won't get upset? And I said, yeah, you don't have to worry. Well, I was down at the main research hospital when I got, you know, hired in here, and I had to go down and pick up some paperwork or do something. And this guy, Charlie something, a supervisor or something, I think, and he said, oh, you're the new doctor for Research Belt ER doctor? And he said, okay, well, I want to tell you, there's a security officer, Dr. Jim Howard. He's a no-good SOB backstabbing, you know, so watch your back. I said, yeah. I didn't explain the back, you know, the whole, and then another ER doctor. And so this went on for all the entire 9 years, and I was out there thinking, you know, it really didn't upset me. It just upset me that somebody would, you know, one, that the new director of security, when he came in, I knew he would be hearing all that, and I thought, and I know the guy's going to believe this other guy. I mean, like, why would he lie about it, you know? And then, of course, there was, so, anyway, there was, well, I'm so sidetracked now that I don't, you know, sometime I'm going to make a, come on, I gotta do something here with this. Let's see. Unlock. Yeah, I can do it this way. Here we go. More than one way to skin a cat. Oh no, I shouldn't say that. So, oh, anyway, when this new director secured, that was the thing, bicycle. Man, oh God. That was like, it seemed like in the last century. So anyway, I was out there, you know, at the new hospital with the new director of security. No, before that. But, well, about that, no, it was before that. But I was always on my activity sheet when the few times that I did it, you know. I mean, you want to be systematically unsystematic, and, you know, like when out at that small hospital, you know, I do an outside patrol, I walk around it this way. Next time I might walk around it, you know, this way when I went out. Sometimes it was a small, I'd start around the hospital, but then I'd go into the hospital and then go out the front door of the hospital and then go, you know, be systematically unsystematic in case somebody's watching or whatever. And then sometimes, you know, I would rather be no schedule, you know, so somebody could, oh, okay, you know, we can break into the car because that guy's started walking and he's out there on foot, you know, I might get my bicycle, you know, for a little bit. So anyway, I've been logging that for, you know, probably about a year occasionally, every day. And I got my merit review from the new director of security. And he said, oh, by the way, he says, he put it in the merit review, written in, you know, in the, they have a thing for checking boxes. And by the way, well, take the hospital before I went to work for this SOB director of security. The guy that was, you know, got his job with the police department and apparently never really, you know, had to work. At least he never had to be. I don't think he was ever really a patrol officer. I mean, I think he just, because of everything, you know. But for the 18 years that I worked, well, not the 18 because the new director of security came in and even though he had heard bad things about me, my merit review, well, the other guy didn't have the courage to. All I got was, all I got really were the merit reviews were just average, nothing spectacular, Great. The hospital that I worked at for 5.5 years before, the merit reviews I got there were fantastic. And, the second day when I hired in there, the second day that I hired in there, I arrested 3 guys who went into surgery. It was a Saturday. And surgery would not normally, but they had an emergency surgery, and then there was, the door was unlocked, but they were in the, operating room, and these 3 guys went in, grabbed some meds, and ran, took off, went down the hill. They were about a block away, actually. And I hollered down to them. It was a steep old hill. And I was loaded down with my radio and my gun and all this crap. And by then I was getting a little bit older. But I hollered at him, hey, I need to talk to you guys. Come here, No. I said, no, I need to talk to you. And if they'd have just walked, regular, if they'd have just walked away, I probably wouldn't have been able to even catch them, But no, and I said, they said, we saw a dead body. And I said, well, it won't, bite you here, come on, I got them. Of course, they threw the stuff, the stuff they threw down. But I got them. The next day, that was like my second day of work at that hospital. The next day, I got a call on the radio that nurse on the 3rd floor, and there was also a lobby door up there, but a nurse on the 3rd floor wanted to talk to security, so I headed up that way, and just as I got up there, a guy had come in the front, the door, and came over. He said, are you security? I said, yeah. He said, I'm with the Kansas City, Missouri narcotics unit. He wasn't in uniform, of course. And I said, okay, he said, I'm here about the arrest you made. And I said, okay, I'll be with you. I said, I got a call to go over here on this I'll be right with you. And he said, you want me to come with you? And I said, sure, come on with me. Went over, and nurse there at the station, I said, what can I help you with? And she said, a guy grabbed some medication out of our med thing here. And she said, I asked him what he was, if I could help him. And he said, yeah, where's the restroom? And I told him, right over there. And I said, where is he now? And she said, he's in the restroom. So when he stepped out of the restroom, there was, I forget what he stole. I think it was Xanax. And I don't know if he knew, if he used them so much that he knew. What was funny was security had, this guy had done that at other hospitals. And we had a thing there at each one of the nursing stations with this guy's picture and information. Call security if you see this guy. And that, that was him. But anyway, that entire time that I worked at that hospital, I was the fire marshal. On Mondays, just about every Monday, but not sometimes every Monday, I would go to the new employee orientation and do the security part, parking, how you get a parking permit, what a code gray meant, what Dr. Red meant, or what was it? I did. Oh, I just can't, all the stuff all the stuff, and I was acting, ended up that the director of security, that's a long story with, uh, I've talked about him. I actually liked him, and he drove me crazy. The longer I worked for him, the guy drove me crazy. I actually liked him because my merit reviews were unbelievable. He had in there that when there was an opening, when his position as director of security became available, I should be the person who. And then at the last one, I couldn't stand this guy any longer. Because now, all these years later, I realize, although this guy was smart, he had some of the same characteristics as former President Donald Trump. And then, of course, books have come out and stories have been done about, President Trump and his problems that he has. And then, so, all these years later, and we're talking a whole bunch of years later, I'm like, oh, wow. I see the similarities, although the director of security was a smart man. But with frailties, he couldn't deal with, writing up a procedure, drawing up a plan, all that type of stuff. He was fantastic at it. But dealing with an employee, disciplining an employee, or just everything in that area, he was, the stuff that he did was just unreal. And now I see the similar, now, of course, when I worked for him, he probably was at the beginning of his, whatever these things are. And here, though, President Trump is at, further advanced, although, this director of security is dead, But, so, different. But if I had known when I was working for this director of security, if I had understood that what he had, if I could understood the way I understand now, I would have just, in fact, I had, a job, well, one good job offer, which I didn't take, at the Johnson County Community College as a security officer. I thought about taking it, but I didn't. And if I had known, then I would have taken that job at the community college. But I learned something later on. Anyway, I am so sidetracked that it is unbelievable. Oh, that's okay. Let me minimize this. So, am I unlocked? No, I have to unlock it, don't I? Okay, now I've got to come on here, down here, over here. Okay. There we go. Lock it. Okay. I was looking at this the other day, a few days ago. My stomach is growling so loud. I don't have anything to, anyway. You can see I've noticed in my stomach. I don't have a baby bear trapped. I'm also not pregnant, although I could, I've been looking, I'm always looking at things on Amazon or on YouTube or something like that. And I've got a bunch of, one day I didn't get around to making a video, but I've got a stack of different types of adapters that plug into, But this is this docking station. And now this, I don't have a laptop actually, or do I? No, I don't. This would be, I'll find out tomorrow. Well, I won't be able to test that part so much, but this would be an excellent thing for somebody who has a laptop or something like that. I do hope to get maybe a tablet. I have a couple of tablets, but they're like, let's see. Well, one of them is, which I never use. I don't think it's even charged up. It's an Amazon, whatever they call that. I've got two cell phones, one that I use, and the other one that I did have before I got this other one, the one that's the Moto, the stylus one, and I like that. I just play with this occasionally because of the stylus. So I may get me a tablet one of these days, and I have got to get some coasters. My Cokes sweat on the thing. Anyway, now this would be ideal, I think, for somebody who has a laptop. You would that USB-C, so you'd go from USB-C into your laptop, and then, so you could have you have your laptop, you're walking around wherever you're doing with your laptop. You have your laptop. You have this at home, the office, or wherever, and you just have a Type-C. It comes with a Type-C cable plugged into there, and all of your printer, all of the stuff that you want to be able to access with your laptop, you have plugged into here. So when you bring your laptop over, where you're walking around through your house, or you use your laptop at work or something, you come home and you have the cable already in there, and then you just walk up, plug it into your laptop, and you have everything that you've plugged into here. Your monitor or monitors, your network port, all these USB ports, headset, microphone, whatever, all this type of stuff. So for that, it would be excellent. Okay, I don't have a laptop. I've got the WAVLINK GT, whatever it is, which is running Windows 11. But anyway, I've been looking at various things, and then as an impulse, really. By the way, this will also charge. You can charge your laptop with it. It says 65 watts, so I think that's maybe 65 watts of charging, or is that? I think so. I'm not going to talk a lot about this because I'm getting it tomorrow, and it's a lot smaller than, when you look at this, it's actually a lot smaller, so I will, anyway, it was sort of an impulse purchase today. It says the docking station creates a comprehensive professional desktop solution and connects your laptop PC to dual HDMI ports, USB, internet, audio, 100-watt power adapter, supports 65-watt upstream charging, dual HDMI video port support. One can be 4K at 30 refresh output, and the other output will be a 2K at 60, 1080p. GPU built-in content adaptive technology to decrease CPU loading and multiple HW decoders to give video streaming faster performance. Video, I really don't think I actually need this, but anyway, I got enthused and I went ahead and purchased it, and it will be here tomorrow. Wait a minute, I think they just changed. They did. Oh, I see. No, okay. I ordered. That's what I was just going to mention. I was going to mention to you. Oh, wait a minute. This thing where it tells you free delivery, or and that type of stuff. That thing doesn't update. But I was here a few hours ago, and it was like order within 3 hours and get it, next day. So yeah, it's scheduled for me tomorrow. So this is for somebody who does order now. Anyway, it's going to be interesting. I have two monitors. One is a 4K monitor, but I have them both on. Oops, wait a minute. Let me lock down the. I wouldn't move it, but. So, okay, I'm going to make you a well, I'm going to. This thing that you just heard, rambling all over the place. I'm going to try to make sure that doesn't happen again, that I'm a little more organized. And also, I haven't checked it out yet, but YouTube has a new thing, I think it's kicked in already, where you can make a video, which, like I could make a video and I could talk about hospital security, talk about politics, talk about this, and you can create they call it a chapter. So what I could do then is, as long as this information wasn't scattered, as long as it's all parts, in one, that would be chapter 1, and then underneath it would say, chapter, well, you wouldn't have to say chapter, I guess, however you want to do it, but, and then 2, and then 3, or as many as you wanted. And that way, when you came to my videos, I could have chapter 1, a idiot rambling and talking about who knows what. You'll probably get motion sickness or whatever listening to this. And then chapter 2 is talking about politics, which you don't want to hear. And then chapter 3 is talking about the WAVLINK USB, universal docking station. So I'm going to try not to put you through the stuff that I just put you through, and I knew when I was doing it that. So, thank you very much for watching this.